Hi everyone, this is Nafi Shah. I'll kick us off today. All right, let's get us started with a few housekeeping notes. All right, to help this meeting run smoothly, please mute your mic whenever it's possible. Please direct your questions to the chat box. We will monitor chat box and make time to address questions. However, if you prefer to ask a question verbally, please wait until the designated question slides after each section. We will be tracking attendance, and this meeting is required for new contractors who wants to get on the list. So please listen up toward the end of the meeting. We will give you a cue to sign in with your name and your company name in the chat box. This is how we record that you were present and get you moving along your registration process. All right, wait times. We are currently at about 3 weeks from the time you submit the application till LOI. Inspection are 4 to 5 weeks. Wait time and final documentation review come in the final payment to your customer is about 3 weeks as well. Right, the upcoming meetings, if this is your first meeting that you are attending, then you will be required to attend the general meeting. The next general meeting is scheduled for Thursday, April 21st. All contractors, whether you are trying to get on the list or already on the list, are required to attend our general quarterly meeting. The next technical training is scheduled for Thursday, May 19, and is mandatory for new contractors to get on the list and if you hired new technical employees. We do recommend those folks to attend the technical training as it's a source of information and code updates, and it will be very helpful for them. The next administrative meeting is scheduled for Thursday, June 16th. That is mandatory for the new contractors to get on the list, and if you hired new employees that are likely to be processing applications or using the EECP to submit applications, we really recommend they attend administrating meeting. Please note that this meeting is recording, and the recording of the meeting and the presentation will be sent out to all the attendees. All right, the registration requirements. What do you need to do to become a participating contractor? A lot of you are here because you want to register and become a participating contractor. So let's review the process here. To become a participating contractor, first you need to register with the City of Austin as a vendor to become a participating contractor, which allows you to participate in our program and also allows you to bid on the city's project. The next step is apply for our rebated program. So there are some documents that you will be reviewing, such as solar contractor handbooks and code of conduct. Those are very important documents that lay out the expectations that we have for contractors and also the compliance guideline. Then there are a TDLR electrical contractor license, which verifies to make sure that you're allowed to operate in the state as an electrical contractor. There are other various insurances that you will see when you go online to register. There is liability workers' compensation and automobile insurance. So we will when you submit all of those documents, and after that happens, then the next step is to attend the required meetings. As I mentioned earlier, anyone who wants to be on the participating contractor list must attend a technical and administrative meeting before becomes a participating contractor. These days are listed here. In this meeting, we will talk about FACTA acknowledgement form, and if you are ready to be in the program, after this administrative meeting, reach out to us and we'll get you set up with the acknowledgement form to just confirm that you've been trained by attending this meeting. Please note that the incomplete applications will expire after 100 days. And if you have any questions regarding the registration, please send those questions to solar@austinenergy.com. All right, how to maintain a participating contractor status. You need to keep your insurance document current, sign off any new program documents from time to time. We'll update various compliance documents and forms. Every quarter, you need to send a representative to the general contractor meeting. Make sure you are keeping consistent projects in the pipeline and also adhering to the compliance standards. All right, I'll pass the mic to Mary.
Awesome, thanks, Nafi. So as Nafi was mentioning, the FACTA training is part of one of the requirements for becoming and maintaining your participating contractor. So what is FACTA? FACTA is the federal act that mandates businesses and individuals to take appropriate security measures to protect customer information against what they call unauthorized access to or use of the information. So it's all about protecting from identity theft, and it focuses on how we handle the customer information that we have access to. Next, please. I've laid out the requirements, but what are some of the examples of what appropriate security measures are? Some of the examples would be truncating credit and debit cards, or limiting the access of Austin Energy customer informations to authorized personnel, right? So just only people who are really supposed to be seeing that information, none of your roommates or other people in the office that happen to be there that are not needing to see that information. It's very important to communicate the importance of these requirements to everybody in the office and to create an environment where the data is safe from prying eyes. Next, please. All right, so and what data is covered, right? What is FACTA data? Any record that's about an individual, whether it's paper, electronic, or any other form that includes the name, social security number, driver's license number, phone number, physical address, email address, like these all are things that are seemingly like innocuous by itself, but when you combine these things, there are the recipes of what it takes to verify somebody's identity anytime you call in or need to confirm digitally. So those sorts of data points, are really important to safeguard. And all of Austin Energy and its vendors, including its contractors, are responsible for compliance with FACTA. It is a federal law that was enacted in 2003, and it's important to renew your training annually. Next. And that's it. Any questions about that or anything that was before that? Awesome, Nafi. I'll pass it back to you. Actually, I'll pass it off to David.
Well, I'll take y'all through some program compliance topics the next few slides. The purpose of program compliance is essentially to ensure that the participating contractors in our solar incentive programs are adhering with the rules that are laid out for those programs. So you'll find those rules in the contractor handbook that you've signed, in the code of conduct that you've signed as well, and then also in our program guidelines for our various incentive programs. So we're expecting adherence to those rules at all times, just to protect the quality and integrity of your work for our customers and of your interactions with our mutual customers as well. So some of the most important things you can do from an administrative standpoint to remain in compliance with these program guidelines. Some of these categories here are important ways that you can provide the right information to customers when you're starting out a project. So note that while we do not regularly review solar proposals, if one is brought to our attention by a customer who has concerns about the way they've been approached, we will take a look at that, and we will be looking, for instance, at some of these different categories of information to make sure the communications with the customer have been appropriate. So, for instance, the way that we credit for solar production, we have the value of solar rate. We do not use net energy metering in our service territory. So we want to make sure that when you calculate the payback for customers who install solar, that you calculate that payback using the value of solar rate, noting that it is only available as a bill credit, that it is not transferable to other charges, and that it cannot be cashed out as well. And that the value of solar is subject to change with each utility rate evaluation. Every rate case that the utility goes through, the value of solar is subject to change. So please make sure that you're using that value of solar rate. It's one rate specific to each kilowatt hour that the solar system generates. And make sure that you're using language that guarantees that the VOS is what is used, as opposed to net metering, which again is not a format of crediting that we use in our service territory. The utility rate escalator is another important factor here, especially when calculating payback for customers' projects. So you'll want to include a rate escalator of 2% or no more than that. For affordability purposes, we are set to goals of having our rates increase by no more than 2% per annum. So you'll want to include, you'll want to make sure that you're not including a rate escalator of more than 2% in your proposals, because that would not be an accurate reflection of the standards that we are held to at Austin Energy. And as far as the federal tax credit goes, so calculate the FTC as follows. So it's installation costs net of discounts and incentives, which are not eligible for the tax credit to be applied, times that 26% credit, or at least that is the current FTC rate. And if customers have any questions about exactly how to go through the calculations for their tax credit, just encourage them to seek advice from a tax professional rather than from Austin Energy. We are not tax professionals here, so it's best that you have a tax professional provide those answers. So just make sure that you do not include any discounts and incentives in the eligible costs for that tax credit, and do not guarantee the eligibility of the tax credit either, because these things can never quite be guaranteed. All right, customer signatures. This is also important. We have pretty strict rules surrounding when customers sign the customer agreement form for rebate projects, and making sure that there are no alterations to documents after they sign. This is something that is an important part of our review each time we review a rebate application. So we do know when documents are being altered after they have been signed, because of the verification processes that the signing software provides to us. So in the do column, you have here to get handwritten signatures. So you can have electronic signatures or handwritten signatures on documents. You can do either one. Just make sure that you are not backdating any forms when customers are signing them. Make sure that you're using a verifiable tracking method, such as DocuSign, for your electronic signatures. And note that any signatures that are copied and pasted are equivalent to electronic signatures as well. Make sure that you have the customer make sure that you fill in the information in the form, all the information in the form before you have the customer sign. That way you don't have to go back and change anything afterwards and get them to re-sign. But if there are any changes that you do need to make to a document that has already been signed, please make sure you are going back to the customer to have them re-sign that document in order to acknowledge any changes that were made. We will not accept documents that have been altered after the customer signs them. And the appendix section of this presentation that we'll send out to you later, there's more information in the appendix section about how to save and upload signed forms so that you can be in compliance with this specific aspect of our rules. Next slide, please. All right, protect yourself from shady marketing. So we realize some of y'all may use third parties for marketing purposes in order to get sales leads. We have, certain standards and expectations surrounding the integrity of communications with customers, where those leads are coming from. So just note that when you're working with any marketing companies for that purpose, there's certain standards you should hold them to as to how they're messaging, solar projects to customers. So here are some tips to help you protect your reputation and your standing with our program when you're working with those marketing companies. So first off, you're definitely going to want to familiarize yourself with Austin Energy's advertising rules. You can refer to our Code of Conduct, Section 4, which has various rules relating to proper advertising for participating contractors with our solar incentive programs. You'll want to choose marketing companies that are transparent about the way that they operate and the way that they interact and message to consumers. Preferably, you want to review the ads before they are sent out as well to make sure they don't violate any of the standards that we put forth for what advertising standards should meet. So for instance, some of the terms down here at the bottom of the slide show types of messaging that are not allowed, not acceptable for participating contractors in our program. So for instance, promising free solar, promising that you'll make money from solar power. So again, the value of solar credit will credit the customer for all the kilowatt hours that their system produces, but it can only zero out the bill. It can't actually make the customer money back. Saying that there's net metering in Austin, that's also incorrect. We do not use net metering. And statewide rebates, any messages that include this sort of messaging about state level rebates is also incorrect because the state of Texas does not do that. Fourth here, provide a list of misleading statements to the company. So again, if you're looking at these 4 pointers on, improper messaging, just make sure that the marketing company is itself aware of types of misleading advertising messaging that it should not be using when it's gathering leads for you. And also, it's good to negotiate terms of payment with the company based on their ad content. So making sure that terms of payment are tied to the honesty and integrity of the advertising that those companies are doing towards your future customers. So all good tips in order to make sure that you stay above board when it comes to communicating with customers, getting leads up front. Next slide, please. All right, shade analysis. This is also extremely important to our rebate program. So we have an important requirement in our program guidelines that projects must have total average total solar resource fraction, or TSRF, of at least 75% across the entire solar array. And so we watch this really closely when we review rebate applications. If there is, an indication that the project is going to be below that TSRF threshold, our rebate processing portal will kick off an automated warning, just warning us and warning you that the TSRF appears to be low based on the production value. And in that case, we will ask you for a shade analysis that is conducted on site and in person, so that we can review that shade analysis, verify whether the TSRF for that project is in fact 75% and above. So when we ask for a shade analysis, it should include a layout or a map of the roof that shows where each of the measurements for your shade survey were taken. We want to be able to see all the points from the planned array that you are surveying in order to make sure that it's a comprehensive assessment of the roof. Tilts and azimuths, all system measures that are reported in the shade survey should also match what's listed in EECP. So if we see anything that doesn't match, tilts and azimuths that don't match, we'll come back to you and ask you to correct that shade report. We'd also want to see pictures and/or TSRF measurements at each location on the array that was surveyed. So just try to make your shade reports as comprehensive as possible in terms of the points on the array where you are surveying. And again, in order to avoid a warning, the average TSRF across the whole planned system should be at least 75%. We reserve the right to request TSRFs for specific locations. And when we request a shade analysis, we expect it to be provided to us within 10 business days of our request. You are subject to receive a warning from our program if you do not provide that shade analysis within 10 business days, and also if you do not provide an acceptable shade analysis with the details listed here above, that can also result in a warning. I note that repeated offenses for heavily shaded projects that are not meeting this TSRF could land you in larger trouble. Repeat offenders can and have been suspended from the program for this reason. So please make sure you do not put yourself in that position. All right, next slide, please. All right, we'll go through just the basic steps of a day in the life of a solar project, take you through the overall installation and interconnection process here quickly. So first step, once you get your project confirmed, you'll work on and submit the rebate application. So you'll get the solar education confirmation number from the customer, who will need to have taken the solar education course that we offer before they sign the customer agreement form. You'll also receive the letter of intent once we have approved the rebate. Once we have approved the funding for the rebate, that is. So the letter of intent is sent out after the second stage of our rebate processing workflow. And that letter essentially says that we've designated the funds for the customer's rebate. And you'll submit other required documents up front with the rebate application. So that includes the customer agreement form. That includes the layout of the site. And a little later on, that also includes a project invoice that lists out all the costs of the project as well. So preferably at the same time you're submitting that rebate application, or even beforehand, you'll also start the permitting process. Remember that you need an electrical permit in hand in order to start any construction on the project. So you'll go through the Austin Build and Connect portal most of the time in order to do this permitting. You'll need an electrical permit with auxiliary power work type. That's the type of permit that is required for every solar installation in Austin Energy territory. And it's important to note that whether or not your customer is inside or outside Austin city limits, if they are an Austin Energy customer, they do need this permit from the city of Austin, regardless of any permits that are required in whatever jurisdiction they live in, like Bee Cave or Pflugerville. In order to apply for this electrical permit with auxiliary power work type, you'll also need to submit what's called a Distributed Generation Planning Application, or DGPA, which can be found on the Contractors section of the Austin Energy website. The DGPA provides essential details about the solar project that is going to be installed. If that DGPA is for a system that is sized at 50 kilowatts AC or above, you do need to send that to Austin Energy first in order to have us review and approve the system to interconnect. Otherwise, if it's less than 50 kW and it's not on our downtown network, which essentially encompasses the very small section of downtown Austin, if it doesn't meet either of those criteria and it's a smaller system size, you can just go ahead and fill the form and submit it directly with your permit application. And also important to point out here that if you do need to perform any work on the service or on the customer's panel in order to complete the solar installation, for instance, if you need to upgrade the service, that will require a separate electrical permit from the city of Austin as well. So you'll go through the Austin Build and Connect portal for that. There are a small number of cases where you'll go through a plan review process with the Development Services Department rather than going through the A, B, and C portal. But I won't get into that here. We get into that more in our technical contractor meetings. So if you're not already familiar with that, tune in for our next technical contractor meeting to get a little bit more information on that permitting process. So once you have the permit in hand, then you can install the system, perform any service upgrades or service rebuilds that are required as part of that process. If you're installing a battery, you'll install a battery and get a utility controlled outage as part of that process. You'll need to get a rough inspection if you're going to be hiding any conduit in walls or underground before you call for the final inspection, before construction is finished. So if that's the case, you'll need to call for a rough inspection with our solar inspectors so they can look at that conduit that you're going to hide. Meter variances, so this is where if the PV meter is not going to be grouped with the rest of the electrical equipment, you'll need to fill out a variance form and send that into Austin Energy to request approval for that variance. Also, if you're using a meter can that is not on our pre-approved list, you'll want to apply for a metering equipment application approval or an MEA approval through our distribution metering operations department. This has been a common occurrence and a common pain point, I know, for most of our contractors of late because of meter can shortages in our pre-approved category. And this is also the time to apply for any other exceptions you need for your project, exceptions to our to our design criteria and also to our distribution interconnection guide. Those are the two documents to follow religiously when it comes to installing systems in our territory. Next slide, please. All right, and then we get to the inspection phase here. So before you call for your final inspection, you want to make sure, again, that the system you've installed is working properly. We offer an inspection checklist in our distribution interconnection guide, which you can use to help you QC your system and verify that everything is installed according to our code. Once you're ready for inspection, you'll want to complete the inspection request form, which is available on our website. You can just click on that link there in the presentation and it will take you to that form. And you'll want to make sure all the permit fees are paid in full. This is particularly important if your first inspection or second inspection fails and you need to request a reinspection for your project. We have reinspection fees that are assessed. And so if those fees are not paid off before the inspection is conducted, that can be a problem. If your fees are not paid and the permit is still open, then our inspectors won't be able to close the permit and we won't be able to install the customer's new solar meter until that fee is paid off. Once the inspection passes, then the process moves to our metering department. Usually within a week or two after the inspection passes, they will install the customer's new solar meters. And once those meters are in place, your customer can energize their system and start producing. And then we have the closeout steps here at the very back end. So the customer will start receiving the value of solar credit on their monthly bills for all energy that is being generated by their system. Permission to operate. So note that Austin Energy does not issue formal PTO documentation in our service territory. But if your customer does require some sort of formal document for loan financing purposes, we are happy to make an exception and provide a form letter expressing that we've given PTO for the project. But generally, the email confirmation we send you that the inspection has passed, as well as the final status of your auxiliary power permit after that inspection has passed, those are proof of PTO for you. All right, next slide. I think we'll be going back to Nafi after this, but does anyone have any questions about any of that information? All right, and I'm not seeing anything in the chat so far, so if anybody's having difficulty accessing the chat here, just let us know. All right, I'll turn it back over.
All right, thank you, David. So let's see, solar bill credits and rebates. Next slide, please. All right, this has been mentioned in previous slides, but we figure it's good to go into the value of solar. So value of solar is a fancy name that we give for our solar bill credits. They are monthly on-bill credits that we have for our generation. They are based on it. We have a certain, the way that it works for us is that the generation is decoupled from the consumption. So that basically means that the customer is always going to be charged for all of the energy that they use, but then they will receive a separate bill, separate credit for all of the energy that their system produces. And that is based on a certain rate, which we'll go over the next couple of slides. It does apply for both residential and commercial customers. And so, we'll review that in a little bit deeper in the next slides. And then the rebates and incentives, we offer rebates and incentives for different types of housing and customer classes. So residential, multifamily, and then commercial. Commercial, we have two different options. So next slide, please. All right, so on the left-hand side, you'll see that there is the value of solar rate and then the performance-based solar rebates. These are both ways that we give credits for solar on our bills, right? So I'll start with the top part. The value of solar rate is the solar bill credit piece that I was mentioning that has been mentioned previously in the conversation. The residential rate is 9.7 cents per kilowatt hour. Commercial, as long as it's under a megawatt, is 6.7 cents per kilowatt hour, and anything over a megawatt is 4.7 cents per kilowatt hour. In the bottom part of the chart are credits that go to the customer on their bill, but they are based on a rebate, right? And so instead of getting an upfront check from us for a rebate, the commercial performance-based incentives received on-bill credits, right? And they get those in addition to the value of solar. They'll, so if they're a rebated project, they'll have both the value of solar rate and the performance-based incentive. So for a medium size, anything that's under 400 kilowatt hours, it would be 9 cents, large 7 cents, and then extra large 5 cents according to those brackets. Those are production-based on-bill credits for the next 5 years. It's important to point out that the value of solar rate and the solar bill credits on the top half of this chart apply to all customers, right? So whether they're receiving a rebate or not. If you're in this meeting, you're very likely going to be processing most of your solar installations through the rebate program. But if you do happen to install outside of it, doesn't matter. Like anyone who has solar and Austin Energy gets a value of solar rate credit. The kilowatt hours on this chart are calculated as 0.83 times the system and DC size. Any sort of projects that qualify for the capacity-based incentive, which we'll go over next, do not get an additional performance PBI bill credit. And the value of solar rate, like David was mentioning earlier, and all rebates are subject to change. Next slide, please. All right, so residential and multifamily. These rebates that I'm looking at right on this slide right now are issued as one-time checks, right? Residential is a one-time 2,500 flat rebate that you get as soon as the application has gone through its entire cycle. Multifamily is also a one-time check, but it's based on the size of the system. If it is traditional housing, it's 40 cents per watt. Affordable housing, it is 60 cents per watt. For that, we take the system size, multiply it by the rebate level, and that's how we determine what the amount of the check will be. There is a cap on the multifamily checks of $2,500. And again, the rebates are subject to change. Oh my goodness. Excuse me, y'all. Yeah, next, please. All right, and then commercial. Commercial is we decided to get fancy and offer 2 different incentives with 5 different sizes. But this simplifies it for you. Hopefully, if you have any questions, for sure, reach out. But we have a way of giving you credit, either a one-time check or on-bill credits. You get to choose how you want to receive it for some customers. So let's look at the capacity base. Capacity base, or CBI is usually what we'll call it, is what we refer to when we're talking about the one-time check. Nonprofits, you have the ability to choose whichever one you want to receive. So I'm going to leave nonprofits for last, actually. So any small systems under 75 kW AC will be able to receive 60 cents per watt DC as a one-time check. There are caps, those are listed on there. And we just take your system size, multiply it by the rebate level, and issue that check out to you. Medium-sized systems, medium, large, extra large, are all designated again by the buckets that are listed there. I'm not going to list them out to you. And you receive rebate levels based on that size, right? And those are on-bill credits. The difference between the performance-based incentive, which I didn't mention in the previous slide, is that if you wanted to receive a check for the PBI, you can request that. Unlike the value of solar, which always can only apply to your electric bill, the PBI check can be issued to you. It will be on your bill for 5 years. And we take that monthly production and multiply that by the rebate level. Sorry, somebody is unmuted. If you could please mute yourself, that'd be great. All right. So nonprofits, yeah, you are able to choose between which type of incentive. Most of them so far have been choosing to get the dollar per watt DC as a one-time check. But that is an option if you wanted to receive performance-based incentives, and those are $1 a watt DC. Next, please. All right, any questions about this or anything prior? Looks like a lot of you have used the chat, so they probably have. All right, and just to let you guys know, we're about halfway there. So I will pass it off to Nafi, who will be covering a section, and then after that, David, but just wanted to give you sort of a time check to have you a feel of where we are in the meeting.
Thanks, Mary. All right, let's go through program guidelines and customer agreement form. The program guidelines, purpose of this program is to outline the procedures and qualifications for the Austin Energy Rebate programs. What are the scope? Actually, we review the eligibility and fundings, participating solar contractor obligations, and the installation requirements and required documents. And the customer agreement form, that we also call it CAF. The purpose is to confirm important information about the customer, solar installation, and rebate programs, and we want to make sure that this information is has been communicated with customers accurately. So the scopes are to check customer information, contractor information, the solar project details and information, and Austin Energy rebate information. These documents are available online at austinenergy.com/go/solar, and also on the homepage of EECP. All right, rebate program guidelines and frequently asked questions. As a participating solar contractor, you're required to release customers from the contract upon request without any penalty at any time prior to the issuance of the letter of intent. Participating solar contractors must hold the contract with the customers. They must pool the applicable permits with the City of Austin Development Service Department, or DSD, and the system must meet our minimum 75 thresholds of the total solar resource fractions, or TSRF. All right, this is part of the customer agreement form that you need to fill. And please note that if you use a subcontractor, you must disclose it to the customer and include the subcontractor in the customer agreement form known as CAP. Customers are required to take the solar education course and exam prior to signing a contract. And if the estimated system production is more than 110% of the customer consumption, please fill the oversizing waiver in the CAF. Yeah. And then next. All right. How to process an enrollment. This is an overview, and we have the all process of how you can process enrollments in EECP in the appendix. That we will send all the files to you, all the presentation to you. You can find that there. But the energy efficiency collaboration platform, which we call it EECP, we talk about a few basic workflow of the different steps that you will move through as you process a rebate application in EECP. What is the EECP and who needs a user profile? EECP is our online platform to process solar rebate projects. For all rebate project in Austin Energy and Energy Efficiency Program, you should use EECP as well. All right, customer user profile. The best practice for user profile is to have a resource account, just a general account for the full team, and the next best practice is to have one profile per person who's working on submitting applications through EECP. The worst practice is to share one single person user profile, so just make sure that to use those best practices. Most common user profile login issues. If you have your user profile login issue, just make sure to send an email to solar@austinenergy.com, and we can work on to get that resolved for you as quickly as possible. Most often it happens because the insurance document is expired. If the insurance documents expire, you will have your account inactivated in the EECP right away. So just make sure that whenever your current insurance is coming up on its expiration, you get that renewed and you get those new insurance documents over to us that we can make sure it is updated and we maintain your active EECP accounts. Also, password changes can lead to some login issue as well. So just make sure to notify us if you had any issue. Please note that if your account is not active for more than 30 days, it will be inactivated. All right. The residential workflow step in EECP. The first step is the application step, which you have the ownership of it and can edit the information. If your customer would like to apply for rebate, you should create an enrollment, means entering system information and upload the layout and customer agreement form. After the application is reviewed by our processor, and everything looks good, then the enrollment will move to the pre-inspection step, which the Austin Energy processor review the application again and provide confirmation for letter of the intent or LOI. Please note that we highly recommend not installing the system prior to issuance of the LOI. Next is the installation step, which is the step that you have the permission to edit the measures and verify the system has been installed. In this stage, make sure to upload the invoice and warranty and process the step out of the installation so we can finish processing the customer rebate application. If the installed system is different than planned, please upload the new paperwork. Then the next step is requesting the inspection. You should request the inspection, but this step does not happen in EECP. you need to request inspection via austinenergy.com/go/solar inspections through the smart sheet that is an easy and flawless process that David put together. The post-inspection step is where the inspection is done and we verify the system has passed the inspection. Then the enrollment moves to the QA review step, which the Austin Energy processor review the document for the last time. And this is very important that you review all the corrections and the corrections that have been requested because customer is waiting for the rebate. And last but not least is the initiate payment. This step usually takes 7 to 10 business days for customers to get their check. All right. Just some basic information on documentation for required documents across each of these rebate programs that we have in solar program. To apply for all these programs for residential and multifamily and for commercial, the basic application, the basic thing is you need to upload the CAF and the layout, and also in order to request an inspection once the system has been installed for residential projects, the documentations that are required are invoice and warranty. For multi-family and commercial projects, during watching the inspection, you will need the writing diagram and string size calculations of the final contract. And we may also request a shade analysis at any point in the process or justification for oversizing a system when it's projected to produce more than 110% of the household consumption. All right, how to process in enrollments. As you can see here, this is a part of the process in the EECP. I give you an overview of what is required for you to fill out. The reference number, please make sure that the reference number needs to be filled, and we use this number to look back to the solar education course confirmation number. And this number, sometimes it's auto-populated, but go ahead and delete that number and enter the reference number that your client gave to you. Next, you want to go to the drop-down to the battery storage questions. If the project has battery, all you need to fill up this question. And then we also would like to know if this is an addition or replacement to an existing system. If there are already panels on site, please let us know, and then we'll go ahead and get that done. If you have entered the account number previously, this should auto-populate here. If not, you can enter it, and then it will pull up your customer's information. Then go ahead and start your application. The next important step is filling the applicant or account holder. Your applicant needs to be either the Austin Energy account holder, an authorized user on the account, which means that the account holder has said that this person can pay the bills, or they need to be listed as a property owner in TCAT. So you'll see that it will pop up with the account holder and their information. when you're entering the application information, if it's easy to do so, please go ahead and check that one for us. Also, make sure you enter in their email address. It won't let you go to the next step if you don't enter the applicant email section here. Usually the mailing address will be the same as the installation address. If for any reason they would like to check mail to a different address, please make sure to fill that section too. And the next important step is verifying the pay detail here. As I mentioned, the applicant must be one of the following: the account holder, an authorized user, or the property owner. If they are not the account holder or the property owner, then what you can ask the account holder is to call Austin Energy and add them as an authorized user. And then we can move forward with their name on the cap. As you can see, the pay section isn't always checked, but if the applicant is the account holder in the pay section, you can just go ahead and fill in that round bubble there for account holder or just applicant. That definitely makes our process a little bit easier. So if it's the same person, please feel free to do that. Then before you close the page, you make sure that you click save before moving to the next step. Yeah. The next step is filling the measures. When you are entering the orientations for your project, please know that even if you have arrays that are separated on different surfaces, if they are in the same tilt and azimuth, you can enter them in just one orientation. So a lot of time you'll have 3 orientations that are all the same azimuth and tilt. So we want you to enter them in one orientation. Please note that the minimum tilt requirement is 5 degrees. So array tilts under 5 degrees will not be accepted. All right, the application sorry, I guess I pressed it. Oh, all right, yeah, that's correct. If any changes needed, you can change the request the change and reviewer place the application on hold with the reason code application incomplete, and then you will get the notification. You can go ahead and make corrections and just make sure you choose the requested updates completed reason code. So we will be receiving an email that you updates are that the updates are completed. Once you have submitted your application, Austin Energy will review it, and then the letter of intent or LOI will be sent to the customers and contractors in 2 to 3 weeks. All right. Any questions? Okay, then I pass the mic to Maria, I guess.
Excuse me.
Ronnie, I think
I'll jump in here, Nafi.
What is your
Yes.
question, Ronnie?
Yes, I'm not seeing the option for the chat.
Oh, you have to click the little dialogue bubble on the top. But that's okay. This is a good time to just ask out loud.
Okay, no, I didn't have a question. I just wanted to make sure I could put my name at the end.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, there's so on the top ribbon, at least that's how it looks on mine. You'll have little people looking things, and next to it a little dialogue bubble. and you should be able to just click on that, and then it'll let you see the chat.
Okay, if I'm not able to access, I was here, right?
Yeah, we have a couple more question slides to break up this section, and then and if not, we'll get to you. For
All
sure.
right, thank you.
Uh-huh.
We'll also have an attendance list that gets generated at the end of this too. So in case anybody misses the chat, we should be able to find your name in there too. But that is a good reminder for anybody who doesn't know, or if we didn't mention this earlier, I can't remember. If at the end of the meeting, please enter your name and company in the chat. So we're not quite there yet, but once we get to the end of the meeting, yeah, please go ahead and do that, just so we can record your attendance that way. So I'll go ahead and take us through the last couple steps of the enrollment workflow in EECP. So the next step after you get the letter of intent is the installation step. So we'll go to the next slide. And so at the installation step, it's where you'll update any system measures that have changed since the application step and during the installation. And also upload a couple last documents and just verify that you have done everything needed in order to request final inspection. So the layout document, so this is an example of the type of layout and the information on it that we are expecting. So you'll upload the layout at the application step, but also if any system measurements change while you're installing the system, then you'll want to upload a final layout at the installation step as well. So every layout should include your company name, which should be you, the company that holds the contract, customer name and the customer's address where the system is being installed. Those should also be on the layout. NABCEP certification. So every layout for our incentive programs needs to be stamped with approval by a NABCEP professional. Preferably somebody with NABCEP design level certifications, although our current requirements do not specify any specific certification level for NABCEP. And details about the site plan. So we want to see information on the layout about the solar modules, both the model number and the count of modules. If you can have a table that shows the different arrays, that would also be useful. The number of inverters as well as the model of the inverter that you're using, as well as the orientations, tilt and azimuth of each of the arrays that you have in your layout. So obviously we'll be checking the layouts for that information and to make sure that what's entered there matches what's in EECP in the measures. So yeah, to have a good layout, just follow those general steps. All right, so next slide, please. Oh, I think we just jumped back a couple slides. Cool. So after the layout, then we get to the invoice. So the invoice is a document that you will upload at the installation step for the first time. This lists out key project details and costs. So it allows us to check the costs for the project against what has already been listed in EECP. So again, like the layout, this slide shows the basic information that we want to see included in your invoice. So the company name, which should be consistent with what's listed in the EECP on the CAF and on the contract, your customer's name, and the address at which the system is being installed, which should match up to the other platforms where you've entered that information during the rebate application process. The customer's signature should be on the invoice, showing that they have acknowledged the information therein. It should be the same person who signed the CAF and is listed as the applicant for the rebate application. The signing date, so the date of the invoice should be on there as well. A description of the equipment should also be on the invoice. So just like we talked about with the layout one slide ago, you'll want the make and model and quantity of the solar modules and the inverters both, just so we can make sure that that information has been described and that it matches up to what is listed elsewhere in the rebate application. Remaining elements do not need to be itemized. Although I will point out here that if you are installing an energy storage system or performing service upgrades as part of the installation project, when you're reporting costs in EECP, those costs, the cost of the battery should not be included in the EECP project cost. But the cost of the batteries and the cost of the service upgrade, those should be itemized on the invoice. So we're looking for that information to be split out from the purely solar related costs here in the invoice. Total project cost should match the application cost. Costs that are not eligible for federal tax credits or local incentives should be itemized separately. So let us know if you have any questions about any of that. But the invoice is the other document, of course, to upload to the installation step. Next slide, please. Farwell, I see your question there. I'll answer that in a little bit. I actually might not be the best person to answer that question. All right, so at the installation step, you'll want to make any changes to the measures that have occurred since the application step. So if you needed to change the type of module or change the number of modules or change any information about the arrays and which direction they're facing during the installation process, this is where you will update the measures in EECP before you submit your project for final inspection. Next slide. Okay, so once you have uploaded those documents, updated any measures, then you are ready to request final inspection. So how to request inspection. So there is a Smartsheet platform that we use in order to manage all inspection requests and scheduling. The solar inspection request form that is found on our website, and which is linked here in the top bullet point. This form is tied into that platform. So when you go to fill out this form and submit it online, it will automatically populate our platform internally so that we know that you've requested inspection. So you'll want to fill out all the required fields in this form, which are marked by a red asterisk. Additional fields will drop down depending on how you fill out certain fields in here. You'll want to submit the form online. We'll receive the data and schedule the inspection, and we'll send you notifications at each step of the inspection scheduling process. Note that if Austin Energy is not the service provider, so if your customer has a PEC or Encore or Bluebonnet, we do not perform inspections for those projects. So you'll want to request the inspection through the Austin Build and Connect platform, same as you do for applying for permits, because the City of Austin, through the Development Services Department, their electrical inspectors will be responsible for those solar inspections for other service providers. And again, make sure to request final inspection only after the work is complete and verified as in compliance with our code and safety standards. Note that incomplete work or work that's not up to code will result in a failed inspection. And you'll want to maintain a pass rate of at least 70% in order to remain in compliance with our program rules. It's laid out in our contractor handbook that participating contractors need to maintain a pass rate of at least 70% across their final inspections. Otherwise, this can result in a disciplinary action from our program. All right, next slide, please. So when you go through the EECP process, when you get to the inspection step, what you'll need to do is close out that installation step first. So once you've uploaded those documents, the final layout and the invoice, and once you've updated any measures that have changed, then you'll want to select an outcome of work complete in the main installation page of the EECP. You'll want to make sure that these two questions, inspection questions, are answered yes. So have the measures been updated and has the inspection been requested through the website using the solar inspection request form. And then you'll fill in the actual visit date there under the visit information section with the date that you're processing the application. And then once those fields have been filled in, all of their information has been provided, you'll click that process button there in the upper left. And that will close the installation step and kick off the post-inspection workflow step in EECP, which is at this point just a placeholder step for us to verify once your inspection has passed. So that way, once the post-inspection step is open, that's our way and your way of, double checking in EECP that your application is at the inspection stage. So the customer and you are both notified when an inspection is requested, when it is scheduled, if it's postponed or rescheduled, and you'll be notified with the inspection results, whether it passed or failed. This applies to all types of inspections, not just finals, but also to rough inspections or pre-construction meetings that you can request with our solar inspectors. So all those email notifications come from the Smartsheet platform, usually from Austin Energy Solar Inspections via Smartsheet, or from one of our inspectors via Smartsheet as well. Note that we are also sending notifications when the PV meter has been installed at the very end of the process. So you and your customer will both get that notification as well, so that your customer knows to turn on their system. That will come from our DMO dispatch office, but via Smartsheet as well. So just make sure this email address, automation@app.smartsheet.com, is saved as a safe sender in your email account, just to make sure that these Smartsheet emails aren't routed to spam, because I realize that they can end up there if you're not having your email filter look out for this address. And also, please note that regarding cancellation of inspections that have been scheduled, we are back to our policy that inspections should be canceled at least 24 hours in advance of the scheduled inspection time right now. So if you request a late cancellation that's within 24 hours of the scheduled time, we won't show up the next day if you've asked us not to, but that will result in a failure, because it is a very tight time turnaround, and we're generally not able to refill those time slots when cancellations come in so late. So just as a courtesy to us, please make sure you're giving us at least 24 hours notice before you cancel any inspection that we've scheduled. All right, next slide, please. All right, well, that concludes the end of the substantive part of the presentation. So here is a quick list of helpful links to go to different sections of our website. So we have links for our solar education course, for instance, links to our rebate programs, our subscription programs for solar and other renewable energy sources, our participating solar contractor list. So this is the first place to go if you're looking for any information that will be listed on our website. And if we go to the next slide, I think we have a few more contacts. Yes, so some more contacts on this slide and the next one on various subject matter that you might run into during the installation and interconnection process. So just make sure to refer back to these slides if you ever have any questions about, for instance, who to contact for a meter variance, or who you need to contact if you need a meter seal to be cut. Or any questions about solar inspections, reach out to solarinspections@austinenergy.com. That'll be me. Or submitting DGPAs if the system size is 50 kW or above, or if it's on the downtown network. And so yeah, there's a bunch of different topics listed here that may come up. So you're always free to email solar@austinenergy.com to be redirected to the right place as well, but I would check here first just to make sure we don't already have a contact listed for you. All right, and I think, what is the next slide? I think that is it. Yep, that is it. So we will send out a copy of this presentation later, and we will also include an appendix section that includes additional information on how to process applications through the EECP platform. But that concludes the presentation part of this. So if y'all have any questions, now's the time to let us know and we can answer them. Or otherwise, now's the time to put your name in the chat and your company name as well, and we'll make sure your attendance gets recorded. So thanks, y'all.
Excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's Ronnie at Longhorn Solar. I'm still not seeing a chat. And this is a new platform for me. Okay. So, yeah.
It might be a formatting issue based on the way you've logged into Teams, because I know sometimes some attendees see something different on the platform than we do. Do you have like a little bubble dialog box icon on the top that you can click on, or is that not showing up?
I do not, sir, no.
Okay.
How do you spell your last name?
CANCINO.
All right, you're logged in.
All right, thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.
Hi, my name's Daniel. I'm from Sunrun, and I have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
I asked on the chat earlier, and Mary kind of answered. Well, we need to make corrections on the ECCP portal. I know she mentioned that it's going to be on case by case, but sometimes when we need to get like the correct customer name or make changes to the CAF form, sometimes it can take us more than the 10 days, so like a couple weeks or a month. Do we still need to email you guys requesting an extension?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is communication, right? Like we need to know that you're working on it. We don't want to send over, we don't want to send a correction your way and then just have it floating around in the ether. A month seems awfully long. It makes me wonder how you're able to, you want to be able to give really good quality customer service. So, ideally the turnaround time would not be a month, because you want to be able to be in contact with your customers and get responsiveness a lot shorter time than that. But yeah, I think just, reach out to us, keep us in the loop. Not on day 9. If you know that something's happening with a situation, let us know sooner, as soon as you know that there's a problem.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I'll send an email out and send you a list, because I know we haven't been doing our due diligence or whatnot. So I'll go ahead and make sure that we stay in communication. Thank you.
Relation to that question too, that we do have a similar 10-day deadline for corrections to be made after inspections. But we do realize there are certain situations out in the field, for instance, if you need to go back and get a shutdown where the timeline of those inspection related corrections is outside of your control. So we're perfectly willing to make exceptions to that 10-day rule as it applies to inspections, where warranted.
Thank you.
Hey, Farwell, I know you had the question earlier about whether the rebate dollars were required on the invoice or not. I think, Mary, if I can call on you, I think you're actually better to answer that question than I am.
They had it pulled up. It doesn't at least on the residential guidelines, it doesn't spell out that it has to be listed. It does say it needs to be itemized though, the cost. So I say residential because I know that you do multifamily and commercial as well at Lighthouse. So a multifamily and commercial is a little bit different. Anytime you're going to have a performance-based or capacity-based, not the flat rebate, everything but residential. The guidelines do say it needs to be listed, but for residential, it just says that needs to be itemized. I would just go ahead and go with the safe bet. Let me pull up but I will put the actual language in the chat just so you see what I am referring to. Because I don't like just telling you stuff. I want it to actually be in, black and white in our guidelines. But actually, you know what I mean? Like, let's see, one sec. Sorry. I can't actually look up things and talk at the same time. I'm putting it in the post right now, in the chat right now, so you can see the actual language from the residential guidelines. Like I said, it's a little bit different it's not the same for multifamily and for what's it called, commercial. That's a long way of saying it depends on the program.